academics who push for the draconian online news censorship law. The law is based on a lie. The legacy media and liberals claimed Facebook and Google were profiting off the legacy media's content. That was a lie. Google does not run ads on news searches. Any website owner can prevent Google from including it in search results by adding one single short line of code. The legacy media actually spend time and money making its websites Google friendly. Facebook does not profit off news links. In fact, Facebook would prefer you not to click on links to third-party websites. Facebook would rather you stay on Facebook and click its ads. That's why Facebook's algorithm favors user-generated content. If I make a video and upload it directly to Facebook, the algorithm will share that video more than if I shared a link to the same video on YouTube. Facebook doesn't profit off content. It profits off your privacy and data. Facebook's algorithm manipulates news feeds and censors unpopular views. Now, instead of passing a law to protect your privacy and end social media censorship, the liberals passed a law to help media companies profit off your privacy. Now, the liberals are lying again. The liberals are claiming that lives are at risk in Yellowknife and Kelowna because people can't access local news on Facebook. The liberals' attacks were dutifully written up by all the legacy media outlets. It's strange how none of those same media outlets bothered to report that the internet was down in several Yellowknife communities as a result of the fire damage to the fiber optic lines. Hearing the liberals complain about a lack of local news coverage in Yellowknife is disgusting. The liberal hypocrisy is sickening. Last February, Yellowknife-based company Cabin Radio had its FM radio application rejected by the CRTC. The reason the CRTC gave for not permitting a third local radio station in Yellowknife is unbelievable. The liberal-appointed members of the CRTC said it would create too much competition. Too much competition. Now, here's the thing about CRTC decisions. If the federal government doesn't like a decision, it can ask the CRTC to review it. When the CRTC ordered Bell to charge lower wholesale internet rates, Bell lobbied Trudeau, and Trudeau ordered the CRTC to review that decision. The CRTC looked at all the same evidence, but this time decided to align with the marching orders from the Prime Minister's office. But when a local news outlet, the kind the Liberals claim they want to help, is denied a broadcast license based on the inane premise that it would lead to too much competition, the Liberals did nothing. When one of the most powerful and profitable companies in Canada wants something from Trudeau, the Liberals bend over backwards and order the so-called arm's-length CRTC to try again. When a company with just a few employees, far from Ottawa, is denied a license for an inane, arbitrary reason, the Liberals don't lift a finger. Ironic that the CBC and News Media Canada, the main newspaper lobbyist organization, are filing a complaint with the Competition Bureau against Meta. Frankly, no industry has engaged in more anti-competitive behavior than the news media industry. Once upon a time, Ottawa had two broadsheet newspapers, the Ottawa Citizen and the Ottawa Journal. And Winnipeg had two broadsheet newspapers, the Winnipeg Free Press, and the Winnipeg Tribune. The Ottawa Citizen and the Winnipeg Tribune were owned by the Southam Group. The Ottawa Journal and the Winnipeg Free Press were owned by the Thompson Group. On August 27, 1980, Southam announced it was closing its paper in Winnipeg and Thompson, and it was closing the paper in Ottawa. And Thompson announced it was closing the paper in Ottawa. Talk about horse trading. So get that again. Southern News on August 27, 1980, announced it was closing its newspaper in Winnipeg, and Thompson announced it was closing its paper in Ottawa. Over the following years, the newspaper business became more and more concentrated to the point where all of English Canada essentially has two newspaper companies, Post Media and Nordstar. You may recall in 2017, those two companies basically traded a bunch of smaller community newspapers to one another. Then both companies shut down those newspapers. Canada's news broadcasters are protected from foreign competition by the CRTC and the Broadcast Act. Both newspapers and broadcasters subscribe to the Canadian Press wire service. This often results in every legacy media running identical stories with identical headlines pushing an identical narrative. Now, that's not what most would think of as competition. Even when the legacy media are not publishing the same wire service story, a shared social status, they're spending too much time in echo chambers like the website formerly known as Twitter. Competition is stifled and groupthink prevails. General Patton once said, "When everyone is thinking alike, no one is thinking." Regular viewers may recall how last January, every media outlet produced nearly identical, uncritical stories about a so-called study produced by Jean Chrétien's former right-hand man. This study claimed 2,800 Canadians had died from COVID misinformation. The study wasn't a peer-reviewed scientific paper, it was clickbait. It was produced by a liberal think tank. Yet just a few weeks later, an actual peer-reviewed scientific paper showed that people who share alarmist stories about misinformation, such as a news story about COVID misinformation killing people, think other people are gullible. Not a single legacy media outlet reported on the real scientific study, yet all of them pushed the alarmist study. The same way the Liberals have become obsessed with regulating the internet to prevent misinformation. Because the legacy media and the Liberals think they are smart and sophisticated, while the rest of us, they think the rest of us are stupid and gullible. And that's why they hate freedom and they love control. Conservatives believe in freedom because we believe Canadians believe in Canadians. We believe individuals are the real experts on running their own lives. Speaking of arrogant Liberals, one such Liberal was recently fined $1,500 for voting illegally in the last federal election. This woman was working in the Prime Minister's office during the 2021 election. She was also volunteering for the Liberal candidate in Calgary Skyview. On September 2nd, this woman went into Elections Canada and into the office in that riding. And shortly after an election is called, anyone who lives in the riding may vote at the Elections Canada office in that riding. She went to the office to vote, but was told by Elections Canada officials that she was not eligible to vote since she normally lives in Ottawa. When informed she was not allowed to vote, this arrogant Liberal actually told the Elections Canada officials that she was entitled to vote in Calgary Skyview and would go and vote in the advance polls, which she then did. The Liberal candidate won the riding by fewer than 3,000 votes. That was the same Liberal candidate, now an MP, who was fined for destroying conservative brochures and mailboxes. Apparently, this arrogant Liberal actually conspired with another relative to also vote illegally. This is the reason Liberals have not appointed a new ethics commissioner. The Liberals under Trudeau have no ethical boundary they won't cross to stay in power. Live from Ottawa, this is Cheryl Gallant.